Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sarah Smith, and I am joined by a couple of special guests today. I'm very excited that they've reached out to me. This is Heather, Meri, and Robert, and they'll introduce themselves a bit more, but they've come a long way from the South Island and they've been on a bit of a road trip. So maybe we'll start with you, Rob, and you could just introduce yourself, and you're both from the Agricultural Action Group, so you could tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So we're just doing a bit of a roadie around the whole of New Zealand, obviously here in the North Island at the moment, in the big smoke of Auckland, which is a bit of a culture shock for me. And we're just here trying to meet like minds, set up satellite groups of AAG or just loose affiliates who are wanting to spread the message about what's really going on in this country with regard to the implementation of United Nations Agenda 21, the World Economic Forum Great Reset, and the push to what is essentially a communist totalitarian state. Pretty wild stuff, pretty wild claims, but we would contend that we can prove this is what's going on, and we're meeting some amazing people up here who are going to help us spread this message and wake up the country.
Awesome. And so maybe coming to you, Heather, how did you and Rob start this journey together?
We were, after the election was over, we looked and thought, well, the country is going down a path we really don't like with Labour, and so ourselves, Rob comes from Southland, I come from more central Otago, and there's another guy, Fred Roberts, so the three of us formed the Agricultural Action Group. Fred lives just the Taieri near Dunedin, and so what we recognise really clearly is that the first phase of this current movement to totalitarian communism is the fact that they will smash the farming community, and then you endanger the food supply and you get the people off the land. And quite often farmers are very practical, they quite often have their own firearms, they're used to being very practical and fighting for things. So it's the place where, although the legislation is right through everything, city planning, all kinds of things, that we can see very clearly that they're targeting the farmers first, and so this impacts everybody. When there's a shortage of food in the supermarkets, when the prices skyrocket, even the urban people are going to be really badly affected by this. So we were concerned that the average Kiwi couldn't understand, especially the farming community, why are we being smashed with these new laws which make it impossible to access fresh water, which make it impossible to run our farm economically. We've got to meet all these requirements, apply for resource consent to plant your own crops. That's ridiculous. So just a whole lot of ways to make it non-viable to farm. So they were asking, why is this happening? This makes no sense. And we can actually come in with the documented proof and show you why it's happening. And so, my next step out from the farmers in the agricultural sector is actually the rural communities, the shops, the transporters, the small doctor surgeries, the schools, that whole community which thrives when your agricultural sector is thriving also will be shut down and smashed. So we're just really passionate, like one of kind of the kaupapa of what we're doing is that we want to make people aware, like it's making people aware of what's happening and then inspiring them to actually get involved in what's happening for our country and then motivating people to take action. So we've got a real decentralised approach. We believe the power comes back through to the people when you're standing in community, whether that's the farmers in a radius from you or whether it's the people on your street in the city. We need to be forming groups where we know we can back each other up if vaccination teams arrive at the door, or if there's a shortage of food. Well, Meri grows potatoes and I've got an apple tree. We can pull ourselves together to respond, but we're also really encouraging peaceful, non-violent, non-compliance, because we are the 99%, but unless we go stop, I don't consent, unless we push back, saying nothing is consent. So there's a whole lot at stake. There's the future of our children and our grandchildren to come that, if we don't do something, we're going to end up living in something that closely resembles China, and we're just having our freedom stripped one by one, and personal property is high on the list. And the agenda, the list of unsustainable things includes private property ownership, be that land, vehicles, businesses, roading is unsustainable, irrigation is unsustainable. So you can look through that list and go, well, this is what they're hitting. I can see this law that takes out the ability to irrigate your land, therefore the ability to grow your crops or have your livestock has been taken away. So yeah, just a road trip around meeting beautiful people in New Zealand, and amazing people like yourself, Sarah and Carol, and and other freedom fighters, and just going, okay, so we're all actually fighting for freedom, but how do we resource people who are just beginning this journey? And so if people want to get onto our Facebook page, you can either put your email in so that we will email your newsletter with suggestions of how different groups are pushing back, with resource and links to United Nations documents and all those things to prove that what we're saying is not actually airy-fairy. It's not conspiracy theory, it's actually fact, it's documented fact. So we're just aware that time is quite short. We don't know, if there'll be more lockdowns. We don't know if we're still all going to have access to the internet. So we're really wanting to mobilise New Zealand to become aware, to become educated, and to actually form little groups which will push back, because we don't want to be caught napping when things get a lot rougher.
Awesome. And Rob, have you got any little stories of like local farmers that you've been coming across and what they've been going through personally?
Yeah, sure. So obviously we're dealing with it all the time down home. I come off a farm, I manage a family farm, and the local farmers are confronted with a whole wave of legislation that limits how they can farm on their own property. They have limits on how steep the country is as to what they can do on it. They have to apply for resource consents if they want to change farming practices or farm in certain ways. They are essentially asking for permission from the state to be able to earn a living, feed their families, and carry on business as usual. It's not possible under this new legislation. That it's so restrictive, prohibitive, that it's literally going to destroy their businesses, their way of life. And so, obviously what we're doing is trying to wake up not only the farmers themselves as to where this is coming from and how we can push back against it and stop it, but also the urban people like yourselves who may or may not understand what's going on in the farming realm with legislation, but try and raise awareness in the cities, and also let the people know that it's coming for you too. You're not immune from it. This doesn't stop on the farm. So yeah.
And so, and how are they? They're losing their farms? That the banks aren't giving them loans anymore. This is really going to be damaging people's lives, their mental health.
Yeah, it puts massive stress on the farmers. Mental health issues are obviously deteriorating. There's a lot of people feel like they're being attacked from every angle, that there's no real way out. They feel helpless. There's nothing they can do. And a big part of what we're trying to do is show people that there is a way to respond, empower local communities, help show them that if we all work together we can stop this, but we need to unify and not let the state divide us and conquer us. Just providing a lot of psychological support as well as practical support, that there is hope and we can change the situation.
Yeah, and there was one thing that I did want to ask you, and I know we're just doing a little short interview today, but about the election. And so you've got a whole lot of farmers, particularly in the South Island, actually generally in the farming community, wasn't it, that they said that they kind of voted Labour? There was a big swing to Labour. Have you been talking to farmers about that, and what's your response been?
Yeah, we have. I personally have spoken to quite literally hundreds of farmers, and I've come across, I could count on one hand how many have said that they did in fact vote Labour, and the story really doesn't seem to match the reality, and I can't prove anything based on the information and the data I have at the moment, but there's a very strong sense amongst many in the rural community and myself that there may well have been rigging involved in the election results, but there needs to be some proper investigation into that, obviously, to quantify whether that is in fact the case.
Cool. So Heather, maybe do you just want to wrap up again and tell us where people can find you and your work?
Yeah, please pop on to our Facebook page, Agricultural Action Group. And so there will be liveys. I put quite a few videos up. I usually put a wee summary at the start of the topics I'm covering. So if you're interested in fresh water or in various other things, you can select the videos. We also are posting on there relevant stuff that's coming up in the media about what the government's doing. We're sort of questioning and talking about the implications this will have for the agricultural community. And so really, guys, we are all about getting you aware and supporting you. We're decentralised, so we really see it. It's not that here's an organisation with a hierarchy and you come to us and we tell you what to do. Like, there is such a diversity of people in New Zealand in different areas which are people's forte, which they can push back in, or which is their priority in whatever community they're in, urban or rural. So we just want to connect people and to resource you however we can with information. We're also a forum to promote other groups who are fighting for freedom. So if you're having a rally, if you're doing something, if you want to connect with other farming mums in Kaikoura or whatever your particular need is, message us. We're building a database, and we also have people obviously who are coming onto the page. So it's about connecting and resourcing and educating, because we actually need to move into action, because the saying goes that, you know, bad things happen when good people do nothing, which is just, I remind myself of that all the time. So we can know about it, we can be talking about it, but unless we actually push back to say no, unless we actually take action, it's going to happen regardless. So it's just really coming together as a nation, as a country, as one people, whatever, wherever we've come from, whatever age group we are, and just combining into small groups and making that commitment to push back, because the future is going to be so different if we don't actually take action. It's going to be something out of our worst nightmares. So just really want to encourage New Zealand, and when we come together, because this can be so overwhelming and there's a lot of stress already, when you come into a group and you're supporting each other, it's really good for your mental health. It helps lift your spirits. You're not so overwhelmed. So it's a lot about supporting people as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Heather, Meri and Rob, for inviting me to meet up with you and for being willing to say a few words about what you're doing. It's just amazing what you guys are doing. I think New Zealand needs to support our farming community and our agricultural community, because without you guys we really are nothing. And unfortunately the globalists do want to destroy the farming industry. So we are all behind you and we support you, and we look forward to sharing your message and connecting more with you as you go on your journey. So I wish you all the best.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. All right, there you go, folks. That's individuals getting out there and doing what needs to be done. So check out the Agricultural Action Group, and thank you for tuning in. And I look forward to talking to you all again soon. Take care now. Bye.